Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
And he's tall, I'm Matt Graham, a grateful alcoholic. Yeah. I'd like to thank you guys all for having me here down in Hemet. Everybody's been asking me where I've been the last month or so, where the hell Hemet is. And I told them it doesn't go to anywhere. You got to get stuck here. And I think most of you got here, your car broke down or something, you took a wrong turn and you just never could leave. You know, Harold said just don't go over 2.5 hours. Harold wanted me to take Dan's inventory for you because he was back there bad-mouthing the speaker at dinner. Anyways, you know, this is a privilege to get to be part of this deal. You know, I was at the first one you guys had, and I think this restaurant did an awesome job of getting a bunch of ugly old men through that line really quick, and there wasn't no fist fights or nothing. Yeah. I usually take Harold's inventory from the podium, but he's going to get a break this time. I always get him all the time. You know, he does the same thing, expecting different results. He's been calling me for years, thinking we're going to have a normal conversation. You know, my sobriety date is January 26, 1987, and that wasn't my original sobriety date. You know, I kept trying to get a better one, and you know, I know some of the guys here have tried to get a better sobriety date, and you know, the book says it gets worse, never better, and that's a fact. You know, all those years in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, I kept looking at, you know, I'm still buying new Harleys, I'm still marrying gorgeous blondes, and most of you know blondes are a big problem of mine. They get me in trouble all the time. I've been thinking about settling for a brunette if she has enough money. Change my you know, I just, you know, when I drink, I do stupid shit. I always, you know, I mean, I didn't start drinking for a long time. I waited till the summer after the 3rd grade before I started drinking. And, it really pissed me off that I waited that long that I could have been drinking, you know, to get along with life, because I don't know how to deal with reality. And if you start with hot Thunderbird wine, you know, there's no problem of trying to improve yourself. You know, I mean, you start at the bottom, so anything's an improvement. And I found out you could drink hot Thunderbird wine before you went to school, and you know, you're not afraid anymore. You could, those kids that picked on you, you could whip their asses on the way to first period. You become the tough guy of your school overnight. And you know, it's just, you know, everybody in AA, you hear different stories. You know, they didn't start drinking until college or whatever, and it's just, you know, I don't know why you would waste so many good years that you could have been drinking, got here sooner, you know. And And this is Alcoholics Anonymous, and we've been talking a lot about the primary purpose, and I love AA more than anything in the world. But if you didn't add other stuff to your alcohol, you cheated the shit out of yourself, man. There is nothing better than seeing 28 closing times and never been to bed yet. And, you can't just drink alcohol and do that either. I'm going to go ahead and tell this. Everybody's been asking about it. When I was down here about a year and a half ago or something, I hadn't told this story in years and years. I mean, there's just, a lot of people say they need to listen to all my tapes so they get all the stupid shit I done put in the book. But you just can't get all the stupid crap in one talk. But, I was going, and I hadn't even thought of this story in 10 years or something before I was down here. Probably 15 years, I don't know. So I don't always say the same stuff, but I was going along and I asked everybody, do you want to hear about the Hells Angels or the Kangaroos? And Harold and them's mouths dropped open. They never heard the kangaroo story, and a bunch of guys were here then, and Jack's a promoter of the kangaroo story. He loves that story. So I don't forget I'm going to tell the kangaroo story right now. It didn't happen until way late in life, like I was like almost 19 years old, but if you've never found the best spot to pick up chicks is at a religious concert. That is the best place. It's easy to pick those religious girls up, and we picked these girls up, and they lived in Merced, and that's an hour from Fresno, and we went out and partied and did what we did, and we took them home, and we asked them where the action's going on in Merced, and they said, everything happens at the zoo. So we go over to the zoo, and we're driving around. There's no action going on. There's no action going on at the Merced Zoo between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. But I see this ram, and with the great big long curled horns, and I think, man, that thing had looked awesome chained on my front porch. And so I had this 1946 Chevy sedan, and they had huge old trunk lids, and the handles turned. That's what locked it. And the handle was broke off, but it would stay shut. And I go over the fence. I get this ram, and I get in the trunk, and I can't get both horns in. And I mean, I'm trying every which way, and that was a tequila gold night, and adding some of that psychedelic shit with it. And so I'm a nice guy. I take that ram back over the fence and put him in, but now I'm pissed. I'm driving around, and I see these wallabies, and if you don't know what a wallaby is, they're miniature kangaroos. I get to thinking, man, one of those would really be awesome. So me and my partner, we discuss it, and we come up with a plan that if we catch one and grab them by their hind feet, they can't do nothing to you. That's a myth. I got that kangaroo. I got the first one, and I grabbed him by his hind feet, and I could not turn it loose fast enough. That tail like to whip the living shit out of me. So now I'm really pissed. I go back over the fence. I get my coat, and I tackle one of these babies. I throw him in the trunk, and we're halfway back to Fresno. And we think really, we should either think and not drink, or drink and not think. But I always like to mix the two. And I get to thinking, man, I'm telling Mark, you know what? One of these without the mate isn't worth the shit. We ought to go back and get the other one. So we go back and we get the other one, and we get back to Fresno, and we're almost out of gas. And there used to be this all-night gas station on Highway 99 on the west side there, and there was this black dude working there, and I tell him fill it up, and I'm when you're taking that other stuff with alcohol, you get really paranoid and shit, and I'm watching him in the side view mirror, and the guy just takes off running out of the gas station. And he don't come back. And I go, Mark, that dude's split, man. Wonder what's up. And I look back, and that trunk lid's jumping up and down, you know. I said, shit, we better get out of here. So I take off with the gas nozzle still hooked to the car, and it pulls the hose out of the pump, and we're going down 99 dragging this hose, and I think, man, we got to get rid of these kangaroos somewhere fast. And my mom lived out in the country out there. I hadn't seen her in a couple of years, but so we pull up out in the country out there, and we find these wire cages, and we put these kangaroos on our front porch in these wire cages. I go and wake my mom up, and I tell her, Mom, I got you some kangaroos on the front porch. And that smart-ass bitch goes, yeah, I bet you the bears, elephants, and tigers are in the backyard, too. And so I split, and the next morning when I'm awake, you know, I get the newspaper, and the headlines on the front page says, don't look now, I just seen a kangaroo. And I guess one of them got loose, and this highway patrol seen this kangaroo hopping across the highway out there, and went on to say that they were stolen from Merced Zoo, and there was a $2,500 per kangaroo reward. So I hightailed it back out to my mom's. I'm gonna get me $2,500 for them. And I get out there, and she read the paper too, and she turned the other one loose. Man, I choose her out for screwing me out of $2,500. You know, that shit sounds really good when you're drunk. It seems like a reasonable thing to do, you know. You know, most of my stealing came from you having, whatever I had wasn't never enough. You always had more. I mean, I remember buying, one year I bought this new Corvette, and I got this gorgeous blonde with me, and I just picked that Corvette up that day, and I pulled up the stoplight, and there's a Corvette next to me all fixed up, and he had a good-looking blonde with him, too, and I looked at his Corvette and his blonde, and I looked at mine, and I thought, what a piece of shit I got. You know, I was never happy with what I had. You always had something better, and I didn't care if I had to shoot you or steal it. I was going to take what you had. But, you know, when you get into drinking in the 4th grade, you can't just walk in the liquor store and buy booze, so you got to get into some creative stuff and start burglarizing houses and, you know, going into liquor stores and grabbing a bottle of booze and running, and eventually you get in trouble for that crap, and if you won't paint the fire hydrant like they want you to, they send you to juvenile hall, and they just didn't realize I was a non-fire hydrant painting kind of a guy, you know, and you know, the cops were always picking on me, and I'm born in the wrong town. I'm born in this little hick town, and a guy like me needs excitement going on, and you know, and I'm stuck in this little hick town, and you know, now the cops are picking on me, and they're sending me to juvenile hall, and you become the tough guy in juvenile hall, and everybody looks up to you, and you know, I don't ever remember life being fun. I don't ever remember getting up and saying, oh boy, another day I get to go out and play. You know, life always sucked to me. It always seemed hard. I never felt like I belonged anywhere. I felt I was being picked on wherever I was at. I was shy, and you know, I was just afraid all the time. You know, when I put booze in me, man, you know, that crap saved my life, man. I was able to go to dances, and if a girl said no, I'd let her know how it was her tough luck, you know, that she didn't dance with me. And if I got out there and didn't know how to dance while drinking, it didn't matter anyways. And you know, I was able to function in life while drinking, and so, you know, in the very beginning, you know, I learned to drink all day long and skip classes and go get another drink of hot Thunderbird to get through the day. And you know, both my parents were alcoholics. You know, when they got that divorce, and we never seen them, and you know, we wouldn't see a parent for maybe a month at a time, and you You know, my mom would bring these drunken boyfriends home every once in a while from the bar, and they'd beat the shit out of me, and I'd wake up full of my own blood, and I swore I was always going to get them. And the night before I turned 13, it happened one more time. When I came to in a pool of my own blood, I'd been running around with the Hells Angels since I was 10 years old, and I left that night, and it was never coming back. And I moved in with the president of the Fresno chapter of the Hells Angels, and way back in the '60s, man, they were my heroes. Wherever we went, I could go to bars, I could ride Harley Davidsons, I could, people were afraid of me, and they'd stay away from me, and the crazier and crazier crap I did, people stayed further and further, and it was a safe place for a guy like me. You see, this way I didn't have to worry about you finding out I was really afraid. That was the toughest job I ever had in my whole life, trying to make you believe I'm not afraid, to keep you far enough away from me. And they held their hand out that night with these pills when I got drunk, and said, take these. And I want to belong to this deal so desperately. I don't ask what are they, what will they do, or how many you take. You just take all of them, and you can't get up and make it to work the next day. And they hand out this white powder and say, take this, you'll make it to work right away. And I make it to work, and I pulled transmissions out then, and they rebuilt them, and I put them back. And my boss, he drank and got loaded, and I don't know how you guys do it, but I always overshoot the mark, always. I do not, that more about chapter 3, trying to control your drink. I never tried to control my drinking. Why would you want to do that? I drank to not remember. I didn't know whether they were blackouts, but I love not remembering. All 7 of my wives before I got sober would ask me, do you remember what you said to me last night? And the pat answer was, yeah, and if you weren't such a bitch, I wouldn't have to talk to you that way. I never knew what the hell I said. I must have overshot the mark because my boss is kicking the creeper and telling me you're not getting any work done. All you're doing is spinning round and round on the creeper. He goes, you better drink something and slow down. And I must have overshot that mark, because the next thing I know, he's kicking the creeper saying, you must have drank too much. All you're doing is sleeping. You better take some more of that white stuff. And that started another world of madness, trying to drink and take whatever it took to be able to function in the world. And I justified that. At least I don't stick a needle in my arm. And my 16th birthday, there was this gorgeous blonde. She was going to be the mother of my next children. She didn't know it, but she was going to be in. And she wanted, we were drinking tequila gold, and she'd heard that shooting heroin and cocaine was really good, and she wanted to try it, and that's the last I ever remember seeing of that girl. When I get to drink and everything else is off, the marriage is off, the job's off, it doesn't matter, the drinking has to come. I remember coming to and thinking, man, you stuck a needle in your arm. You're really a piece of shit now. And I justified that the society made me this way. That I'll make society pay. It wasn't my fault I became this animal, and that worked so good. That next morning, when you hold a bottle and you can get a little tiny bit in the corner, but it's not enough to make everything okay, and you don't know if you could make it to the liquor store, and so I took that syringe, I sucked that tequila gold up in it, and I slammed a syringe full of tequila gold in my arm. And if you've never tried that, you can get drunk like right now really fast. The inside of your body feels like it's on fire, but you gotta be willing to go to any lengths. I had a guy a couple years ago came up to me and goes, man, you lied. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, I heard you shot tequila gold and you got drunker than hell on it. I go, yeah? He goes, well, I shot up some cheap vodka and it didn't work. And I go, I didn't never shot no cheap vodka, so I don't know what to... So if you're going to try that, if you go back out, don't get the cheap vodka.
Work good.
more like that. Is that better? Away from that speaker? Yeah, it's probably too close. Where was I at? The tequila gold. Cheap vodka. Yeah, don't try. I know there's a guy here with 4 days sober, and I know he's been trying to get a better sobriety date. And I told him if he keeps this up, I'm going to have Harold call me, and we're going to build another newcomer condo. Because the newcomer condo we got now, we put electricity in it and air conditioner in it. If he keeps drinking, we're going to build another one and do like the old one, you know, no heat, no air conditioning, no nothing. You know, we used to lock them in at 11 o'clock at night, and we'd unlock the door at 4 o'clock in the morning. And we just had a cassette tape deck back there with batteries and piled high with AA talks. And people finally convinced me that was against the law to lock them in, but a lot of guys got sober back there. You know, I just started going in and out of institutions, and that was my story for a long time after that. You know, I ended up in CYA, and it's not really cool being a Hell's Angel and going to juvenile hall and CYA. I wanted to, I mean, that's part of the game you play, but you need to go to jail like real Hell's Angels do, and that was my dream, to turn 18 and go to jail. And I turned 18 and that happened. I'm sitting in jail. I did an armed robbery, and a cop walked in and I shot him. And that was some more blonde's fault, because we were drinking tequila gold again that night, and they had some of that psychedelic shit, and they talked us into taking it, and we got this place at closing time, and we had a good plan. We were going to get the cash registers and get the hell out of there. But when you're taking that other crap, when everybody's got these diamonds on and it looks really good, so we decided to rob everybody in the joint, and we got out of there kind of late, and the cops came. And I don't know what you do when you get locked up, if you do get locked up. I drink and I go to places. I go to jails and institutions all over the country. But I do inventories when I get locked up. I get to AA, I don't want to do no inventories, and when I get locked up, it's never about the drinking. It's like, that night in that jail cell, I thought, you know what, if I get out of this mess, I'm not going to do armed robberies at closing time anymore. And I'm not going to pick up no more blondes when I got a job to do, and I'm not going to eat, if they got some more acid, I'm not going to eat that. I'm just going to drink tequila gold and do armed robberies, and everything would be cool. And, I got off those charges. The cops screwed up, and I got off those charges, and I get to thinking maybe I need to slow down a little bit, because I'm supposed to die on my 21st birthday, and I want to be, I thought of my whole life dying at 21 years old. I don't know why I picked 21, but I want to turn 21. I want to be doing an armed robbery. I want to be robbing a bank. The news cameras are out there, and the cops shoot me a couple times. I make it to the Harley. I make it to the freeway, and now the national news is on it. It's got, I can't die with local news. I got to be national news on this crap. And, I make it several hours, and I'm getting shot from county to county, and finally me and that Harley go end over end, explodes in flames, and it's on the national news, and everybody's going to say, man, society gave him a raw deal, that poor guy. So, I got to go from 18 to 21, and I need to slow down a little bit, so I checked with all 7 girls I was engaged to, because more is always better, right? And one said she was pregnant, and back then, if you got a girl pregnant, you did the right thing and you married her, and I did. We had a Hell's Angel wedding in Reno, Nevada, and you guys know about Las Vegas and Reno, right, where they got the free booze. It's like you give them your paycheck and they give you free booze, that kind of thing. I know there's one guy here who understands that real good, huh, Chuck? I'm not judging. I'm just reporting in case you didn't know. Chuck, could you stand up so they know who you are? If you won't work the steps and stay sober, we'll embarrass him to death. He's going to come up to Fresno and Newcomer Condo too. He keeps his shit up. And, costs him a lot less than them casinos, I'll tell you that right now. But so, you know, I mean, I've been married in the heart of Reno Chapel in Reno 4 times. I should get a group discount there, but, you know, we got married and we got her drunk and passed out, and, you know, I was gone for 3 days partying in Reno and doing what we do, and she was a little bit pissed off when I got back to the motel. But, you know, I mean, she deserved it because she either lied to me or we need to go in the World Guinness Book of Records. That kid didn't pop out for 18 months. And it pissed me off, I'll tell you. You know, I mean, we weren't together. I mean, we were split up right away. But, you know, that's how you do when you get married. You know, you have them come spend the night once in a while. And she did end up pregnant. The problem with that was, you know, I must get drunk and girls take advantage of me because I come to out of blackouts and they show me wedding certificates all the time. And the problem is I'm not divorcing none of these. And over the next couple of years, I got 4 wives and not divorced from none of them. I mean, that's a pain. You know, I come to in Reno and this 4th wife shows me a wedding certificate. And it's like, shit, man, I'm building this mall down in Modesto. I don't have time to. I just keep renting more places and move a wife in and take up light housekeeping every now and then. And I don't have time for that, so I take this 4th wife back. I was living with my 3rd wife, and I introduced them, and you know, they weren't getting along real good. I didn't have time for that nonsense, and so I told them I'd be gone for 30 days, and they're going to have to learn to get along together, or one of them's going to have to move or something. And I came back 30 days later, and my 4th wife was there, and my 3rd wife was gone, and I didn't like this 4th wife. And I paid my employees $50 a piece to tie her in my recliner because she wouldn't get out of it. Put her on the flatbed and leave her on the street corner and go by and pick my girlfriend and her kids up and move her in, and that's what they did. You know, and that part, the first step that our lives were unmanageable, you know, when I remember one of my first meetings I went to in 1975, some guy said, you know, he was reading the steps, and he goes, and my wives had become unmanageable, and I knew, shit, this is a place for me. My wives are really unmanageable. Because I had 5 by then, I think. You know, I just, you know, and right in that time, too, I shot another cop, and I get off those charges. They screwed up again, and, you know, life's just really sucking really bad, and I'm just 19, barely 19 now, and the Vietnam War is going on, and, you know, I moved to Reno, Nevada. That's my problem. If a guy like me could have been born and raised in Reno, Nevada, everything would be great, right? And they got action going all the time, and I'm up there 2 days, and I'm in jail, and I'm thinking, man, they pick on me everywhere I go. You know, I get to think, man, you know, I really need to slow down this life I'm living. I'm not going to make it much longer, and I got to go till I'm 21, and I thought I'll join the Army. That's what I'll do, and this is a big decision for a guy like me, so I drink all the way back to Fresno. I don't know why I thought I had to join the Army in Fresno, and I'm really, really drunk when I get there. You know, I mean, we're alcoholics, but we're not stupid, right? I pull up in the front of the recruiter's office. They got all these steps going up inside to the recruiter's office, and I know I'll never make it up there, but you know, when you got to stay just a little bit ahead of the heat because you know they're going to grab you any second, and you got indictments for you in 2 states now, and I got to join the Army today, and I can't make it up all those steps, and I get to thinking, if I pop this clutch just right, rev it up and pop it just right, I'll make it that top landing up there, right, and then just walk straight in the doors. And it sounded like a good plan to me, but it kind of went airborne, and I kind of overshot the landing and crashed through the front double doors of the recruiter's office. And I got this long, scraggly hair and long beard and oily Levi's, and just like in Bill's story, I got off and, like I have arrived, I told the recruiter, I'm the one you're looking for. I'm sure he was impressed. But I took all their stupid tests, and I passed everything, and they said I could do whatever I wanted. And they go, when do you want to go in? I go, today would be fine. And they tell you you can't go in today, you got to come back tomorrow. And that desperation we get, can I make it one more night out there? And I made it, and I go in, and they say, we got your civilian record here, and it says you like to shoot people. I go, I told you, I'm the one you're looking for. And they let me know that they were worried about our guys getting me to Vietnam. And through some people I knew, I got to go in. And back then, they were shipping everybody from California back east for basic training. I never been on a bus, but I figured it'd be 4 days. So I buy enough booze for 4 days, and they put me on a bus to Fort Ord, California. And from Fresno, that's only a 3-hour bus ride. And you can't throw that booze away. I mean, I paid hard-earned cash. I mean, I stole it from you, but I paid for the booze. And I get to Fort Ord, and there's a screaming drill sergeant. Nobody yells at me. I get to thinking again, All the other guys, they ran off the bus and like little sissies and wimps, and this guy's screaming at me. If you're a tough guy, you take up the whole back seat. Nobody else sits there. But so I get to thinking, man, it's a long way down that aisleway. If I could build up some speed, go down them steps, build up a little more speed, hit that dude, you'll probably go out with one punch. And it worked perfect. But as he was going over, I seen these 2 7-foot gorillas behind him. First 10 minutes, I'm in the United States Army. I'm locked up in the stockade doing another inventory. This is a dumb decision, join the United States Army. When I got locked up, though, I go on these long runs, week-long runs and stuff, no sleep, no nothing. And I'm always afraid she'll be in this bar if I'm not there. If I go home, I'm going to miss her. And I got all these other wives. I don't know why I was worried about it, but I get thinking, you know what? I'm really tired. I could sleep for a couple days, and I did. And when I came to, they wanted me to do things like go to the kitchen, peel potatoes. Hell's Angels don't peel potatoes. I ain't gonna put up with this crap. They called it escape, but it wasn't escape. I was just done playing their game, and I left. And the first thing I could find to steal to drive back to Fresno was this abandoned armored truck. And I know it was abandoned because it was running, nobody was in it. I never believed in God. I would hold it, if you were a religious person or like those freaks at the airport, that would get money back then in the 60s, and I would hold a gun to their head and make them get on their knees and tell me there was no such thing as a gun. So there ain't no God, right? But I always get a raw deal in life, and all of a sudden I notice there's a lot of money in this armored truck, and it's about time something went my way. And I used to say, I wasn't greedy, I only took $60,000, but the truth was that's all I could carry. And you know how fast money goes when it's not yours? It took me 6 months a day to spend that money. I spent the last dime on a case of beer. I made it about 6 steps out of a liquor store, and they grabbed me. And I wasn't so pissed about getting arrested. I was pissed they wouldn't let me drink that case of beer first. And I even asked them, what are you going to do with that beer? And they said, it's evidence. And, cops lie a lot, I don't know how many times I've been popped with shit, and they say that crap's evidence and it never shows up on their booking slip, So they took it. So I got sent to the federal penitentiary, and in wartime, I don't know if they still do, they used to, anything but murder, they'd come get you out. And I let them know who I was when I went to federal joint, and they immediately locked me in the hole, and that's where I stayed until they came and got me 4.5 months later. And I was not taking a drink. I went say sober, but not taking a drink as much as I am right now. That 4.5 months, but yet it was sheer terror sitting in that room, that little tiny hole. It was just me to deal with reality and the thinking and not being able to take anything to try to shut it off. And you know what, I want to desperately cry and you know, that fear that someone might hear you in another cell block or something and you can't cry and you're just afraid and lost. And the military comes and picks you back up and they put you in their prison. And in wartime, it's almost impossible to get a discharge, but they decided they didn't want me and they gave me a discharge. And I leave there, I'm thinking, man, you know what, the cops can't help me, the penitentiaries can't, the United States government can't, parents can't. You know, I might as well just try to die and make the world pay for what it did to me. And I just kept going in and out of institutions and psychiatric. They locked me up a lot for the violent crimes I was doing. They used to study me a lot, and I could have saved them a lot of money because I always got diagnosed the same way, homicidal and incapable of adapting to a society way of life. I mean, I don't know how many times I went to psychiatric units and they came up with the same prognosis. So it's like, why do they keep doing the same thing over, expecting I'm going to have a different prognosis? You know, I mean, like when Atascadero was first built, I don't know if you guys all know where Atascadero State Hospital is. It's over between San Luis Obispo and whatever that other little town is, Paso Robles, and and I got to go there for observation after it was built. And that was probably the coolest time of all. When it was first originally built, it was for the violent, criminally insane. For the, you know, if you do things like shoot cops and do armored robberies, and they think something's wrong with you in your mind. And so they send you places and they evaluate you. And I don't know how the hell they evaluate us. So we couldn't create no problems. They kept us so Thorazine out. We couldn't do nothing. I mean, I'll tell you, you know, back then you could smoke in institutions, but we weren't allowed to have lighters or matches. We could have cigarettes. And the back of the day room was, you know, like a cigarette lighter in your car. It was like that in this concrete wall, only it was glowing red all the time. So a day in there was, you just shuffled out to the day room and you sit down at the day table and you start working on trying to get a cigarette in your mouth, you know? Somewhere during the day, you hopefully got that baby in your lips, and you'd wander over to that wall, and you kind of aim for the hole, you know, and when you thought you were lined up, you just fell forward. The problem is, if you miss the hole, you had to go start all over again. But if you made the hole, you just went back to the day table. Now, you couldn't smoke it because you couldn't hold your hands up. You would just watch it like that. And it'd burn and finally get down to the cigarette filter and the cherry and fall down and burn a hole in your t-shirt, and you get up and go to bed. It took all friggin' day to smoke a cigarette. I did that for 4.5 months. And how they observed me, I don't know where they got shit from, man. And then they just turned me loose after they observed me for 4.5 months and dropped the charges even. You know, but it kept, you know, I just kept doing the same thing over and over again. And you know, the courts are starting to think that I need Alcoholics Anonymous. And, you know, I'm 23 years old and I got a brand new Corvette again. And I, you know, I can't go to AA around where I live, you know. God forbid anybody see a Hell's Angel going into AA meeting and think he might be doing something good for his life. So I go to Skid Row one on the other side of Fresno, and you know how those are. You get there and you know, you can just look at the cars and know that none of them will make it out of the parking lot. And then you go in the meeting and I mean, everybody's old there. I mean, they're like 40 years old and stuff, you know what I'm saying? And I made the mistake of going there earlier and they went to the doctor's opinion with me. And you'll hear that a lot of meetings, that the thing you gotta do perfect is the first step, and that's kind of true. But you know, Ed, if you want to die more than you want to live, and you know, for that first step to take effect, you got to have some willingness to do something different in your life. And when you want to desperately die, it doesn't do any good. I mean, they went through that doctor's opinion with me, and I you know what? I understood exactly what it meant. I knew exactly the problem I had. I knew I had this allergy to the body and such to the mind, but you know what? I want to die. I'm 2 years past where I was supposed to die, and you know what? All this great information doesn't do shit for me. You know, there was a guy in that first meeting that said, you know, during the meeting, goes, if I take one more drink, I'll die. And I hit that guy up after the meeting. I asked him, can we go try that? And he thought I was a smart ass, but you know, I desperately wanted to die. You know, this sobriety thing didn't interest me none. And I went to meetings every day, and you know, I got a year sober. I took a year chip. I mean, I made it 10.5 months. That was close enough, I thought. Anybody else here get a chip when they didn't deserve it? That guilt shit kicks your ass, and you gotta have another drink. You know, I'd be back out just a short time, and the courts would send me back to Alcoholics Anonymous, and see, they thought I had a drinking problem. And you know, our book tells us that drinking is just a symptom, it's not our problem. And I know that to be 100% true, that drinking is not my problem, but the courts keep thinking that's our problem. And you know, you know, and like if you want to be honest, like I was, and go to A meetings and not sign your own court card, you know, there's a foolproof way to get them to sign it, and you don't have to stay for the meeting. You walk in with a 44 and throw your slip down in front of the secretary and tell them, you're going to sign this so I can split. They never say, I don't think so. And so I don't know why, you know, I couldn't cheat and sign it myself or have someone else sign. I would go to their stupid meetings, and you know, I did that for a lot of years and kept going in and out of institutions, and you know, 10 years of that crap, going to AA and getting, you know, I tried reserving my right to go to a meeting every night, and afterwards go to the bar and not drink and shoot pool with my Hells Angel buddies, and I made it 11.5 months that time. And this gorgeous blonde walked in, wanted to play a game of pool for a drink, and how can you say no? I took that, and you know, I won the game of pool, so I don't know whatever happened to that blonde either. When I take alcohol in, you know, none of that shit matters anymore. You know, I have to drink. I don't have the choice. And you know, like I say, I never tried to control it. I always want to be in oblivion. I don't want to remember what's going on. I don't want you telling me what happened, what I did the next day. I don't want to know it. You know, I just want to, I just have to drink more and try to find a way to die. I mean, I'm pulling guns on cops by now, and not pulling the trigger so they'll shoot me, and I come to out of surgeries and I'm alive one more time, and the drug overdoses, and you know, it's like what I got to do to die. You know, we were talking at the back table in the half measure section back there where Danny's sitting. We were talking about, you know, and if you can see my left arm, they said if you cut your arm both ways, that'll work. And my left arm is mangled to shit. I mean, I didn't half-ass cut it. I cut the shit out of it, and I didn't die. And now I'm married to my 7th wife and going to AA for 10 years and can't stay sober. And you know, I run her off just like I always do. And she says she's going to take this kid and split, and so I can never see it. And this is my 3rd child, and you know, I've been on about a week-long run, and I'm not going to let another girl do that to me. And I grabbed a shotgun, and I stopped at 7-Eleven. I bought 2 bottles of champagne to celebrate. I'm going to blow her head off. And her neighbors were there, and you know, it didn't matter anymore, you know. And they knew I'd been locked up in a lot of institutions, and you know, I kicked the door and I'm waiting for her to come home so I can blow her head off and take that kid and run. And the SWAT team shows up, and I don't know why I couldn't shoot another cop. And I'm a tough guy. I can't go out there and say, hey, I give up, let's go to jail. You can't, you know, the news cameras were out there. I can't do that. And I get to thinking my children would be better off without me in this world. And I stuck that shotgun in my head and I pulled the trigger. And when I came to out of that coma months and months and months later, I'm strapped to this bed with leather restraints, every part of my body that would move. I was all the way blind. I'm still most of the way blind. This is a big blur out here. But I was all the way blind, and I have this plate that snaps inside my mouth, and if I take it out, I still can't talk. And I didn't have one of those then, and so much of my face was missing. You could stick your fist inside my head, and I was on life support systems, and doctors came in every day and told me, boy, there's nothing we can do for you, you're going to die. You know, it's in my medical records that a power greater than them kept me alive, but there was nothing they could do. And that's where I got to introduce Alcoholics Anonymous one more time. These people from AA would come and they knock on the door and they'd sit down next to my bed and they'd say, Matt, can we read you the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? Like, I got a choice in this matter, you know. And they take turns all day long reading me that friggin' book, and then when they leave at night, you know, they just didn't do it that day. They did it week after week, month after month, and it's like so desperately I want to tell them, you know what, yeah, I understand all that. I am all that, but you see, my case has always been just a little bit different. You see, now I'm blind and I'm dying. So I can't do what you do because my case is a little bit different. If my case is 1/100 different than you, I don't have to do what you do, and I'm always going to drink again, always. But I can't say that. They just read me this friggin' book, and then, you know, the worst part of it was, not that they came and read that all day long for about 12 hours a day. They would leave and go home at night, and they brought this cassette player down there with these speaker tapes. And they'd ask me, you want to listen to speaker tape? Like I could nod my head yes or anything, you know. And they put a speaker tape in, and the nurses thought I enjoyed it so much, all night long they changed the tapes for me. You know, and I got out there and I started doing the 3 to 5 meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous a day. I was really hiding out because now the world's going to get me for everybody I shot and everybody I ripped off, and they're going to get me, so I'm hiding out in Alcoholics Anonymous. But you know what? Life sucks. I'm saving up all my pills for my surgeries because you know what? There's going to be a day I can't even stand being in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I cannot live blind for the rest of my life. And you know, I get the sponsor again, and you know, I don't call him except for if I need a ride somewhere or something, then I call him. I quit going to most of the meetings he goes to because he wants to tell me shit about steps and stuff, and wants to read me that friggin' big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you know, he just doesn't understand. My case is a little bit different. You know, it really pissed me off when a blind person, I mean, I'm ragging like hell that, you know, poor me, you know, look at, I'm blind and Alcoholics Anonymous, don't have no face, I got all these tubes sticking out of my head. And another blind person came and invaded my territory, and I was pissed, man. But a couple years later, I drank 3 times in that 2 years, and that 4th time, I ate 455 synthetic morphine tablets. I guzzled them down with 2.5 gallons of vodka because this shit ain't working. And when I came to out of that coma, I was really pissed. It's like, you know, I'm not just crying a little bit for help. I desperately want to die, and I can't die. And I started thinking of all these things I heard of AA for the last 12 years, and you know, I'm so weak I can't get up, but I roll out on my knees, and it goes through my head, you know, about this God stuff. And you know what? My first prayer to God was a cussing prayer, and I believe with the bottom of my heart that God understands it's the best we can do at the time, and I don't pray that way today. And you know, I'm not going to say it exactly how I said it. It was basically, you know, I give up. You know, I can't do this shit anymore. It's not going to work for me, but whatever AA and you ask of me, I'll do it. It's not going to work. I'll do it to prove to you if there is one, and prove to these old timers that keep bugging the shit out of me that I'll get involved in all this service. I'll work those stupid steps more than anybody around, and you know, I'll do all these service panels. I'll get involved in the steering committee of my home group. I'll get involved in the board at central office. I'll get involved in intergroup, you know, and I'll do H&I, and I'll do all this, and I'll show you. In a couple of years, I'll probably die and show you it don't work for a guy like me. And what happened is I got screwed. I started enjoying life. You know, I went to my home group, and you know, my sponsor was there, and this old timer. And I told him what had happened, and I go, so what do you want me to do? And they, you know, they call me boy all the time. I got called boy the other day. don't piss me off no more, but it did back, I'm a damn ex-convict, I'm a Hell's Angel, I know boy, and they go, boy, we want you to go out and pick up the cigarette butts. I said, you realize I'm blind? I ain't doing that shit. And he said, we thought you said you would do anything. I go, oh, I see how the circus act's going to go. Now we're going to get the blind boy out picking up cigarette butts. We're all going to gather at the window and laugh like shit. I'm going to pick up the cigarette butts. And that worked almost 22 years ago, so I still pick up the cigarette butts. I hope I never do, like I see a lot of old timers the years I've been sober, think they'll leave that shit for the newcomers to do, that they don't need to do it anymore. I always want to do what made me okay in the beginning. I still want to do it today. If it worked 21 years ago, why won't it work 21 years later? It will. It works absolutely. I can tell you I still do the same stuff. It works. Right now, everything on the outside world of my life absolutely sucks. In alcoholics' lives, well, we only have two problems. It's either pink or green. And there isn't nothing. There isn't no other problems besides that. And outside my life right now, everything sucks. But I've done what I've always been taught to do in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've gotten more involved, and a lot of people say, how can you get more involved? I've always been so active in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how I met Harold, running down to Palm Springs to help this guy take this conference down there, and I met him, and then his grandchild got ran over and killed, and they called me and asked if I call Harold and help him out, and I don't even really know the guy, but we got to be really close friends, and that's when Harold's a screw up, but one thing he's done right all these years is he's done whatever we've told him to do. We tell him, man, we're 10 hours away, you need to show up, man. He brings a car full of you guys, and he shows up. And that's the deal here, whether you like it or not, you just need to show up. And a lot of times it's an inconvenience, but you need to show up. They told me they need me to go to jail. I said, I ain't going to jail at 6 days sober. And they said, you said you would do anything. And it's like, okay. And, I go to jail, and they said, well, it's not being covered right. We need you to go every week. I said, I'll give you a year. And that's been almost 22 years ago, and I still go. I still get this spiritual experience every time I walk out that last locked door. It just gives me, I get excited. I thought that would go away, but it still excites the shit out of me. I mean, you know what? One of the promises is we will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. And a lot of my past I wish didn't happen. And things from my past still jump up and haunt me once in a while. Every time they built a new prison in the valley, I saw the AA meetings in them, and I'm going to all these penitentiaries, and I got to go in with Charles Manson and all those freaks in there, and that was my most favorite meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous I ever went to. But after 12 years of doing that, the state of California revised the security policy, and now I'm too high of a risk to go in. But I still go to the jails, and I've been going to Canada and speaking up there for a lot of years, and last year my youngest child, I was a single parent in sobriety, and I ended up with 100% custody of that kid, and him and his fiance went with me to Canada. They still go look at my calendar and see where I'm going and pick out 2 or 3 places where they're going to go with me to where I'm speaking, and they wanted to go to Canada. They'd never been there, and I got detained last year because of my violent past, and they just drilled the shit out of me for 5 hours and had another plane there to fly me back, and right at the last minute they go, we got this convict pass for $200. So my kid goes, Dad, don't pay it. And I go, we're already in Vancouver, let's just pay it. And so they added this page to my passport and took another picture, and I gave him $200, and I was only going to be there 3 days, but now with this convict pass, I got 5 days. And they put in their computer that if I'm ever step foot on Canadian soil, I'm to be immediately imprisoned. And they said you can try for a full pardon. It costs between $200 and $1,000. So when I get back to California, I called, and because of my record, they want $1,000 just to file for it. And I told them to stick in their ass. I ain't made amends for that one yet. I'm just never going back to Canada again, you know. My experience has been in sobriety that whenever God closes his door, if I'm willing to wait for his time, and I know God's been around for a long time, and he's got arthritis really bad, and he is really slow. But if you're willing to wait and you keep doing what he wants us to do, the service in Alcoholics Anonymous, and then you learn how to do it in your community, and that he's always got a better plan, always. You know, I mean, I've done so many, you know, I'm still involved in tons of service. You know, I've been on conference committees. You know, I get the privilege of seeing Alcoholics Anonymous all over the world, and different schools and prisons and jails, and getting to meet people everywhere. You know, they close means start them and close them a little different, but it's all the same. You know, I've been to foreign speaking where I've spoken, and they didn't talk the same language, and I understood what they said without understanding any words. It's, you know, this is the most awesome place in the world when you give up and do the whole deal and stay involved. You know, I got married in sobriety knowing it was wrong. I told my sponsor it was wrong outside the wedding chapel, and he goes, well, you don't have to go through with it. And my exact words were, I'm a big shot circus speaker. I can make it work. And after that divorce, she took me to clearance so bad, I'll never see a day of retirement ever in my life. But you know what? It was good for some years and stuff, but it turned to hell, and you know, I knew better than to get involved. You know, it was a convenient marriage, but you know, I figured that's as good as it ever gets. You know, I've been married 1,000,000 times, and this is as good as it gets. When that divorce came, I was done with women. I wasn't going to be gay like Jack, but yeah. I was done. I'm not going to take them on panels no more. You know, I'm done. You know, I love my life, man. You know, I'm involved in my kids and my grandkids' life. I get to run all over the country, and you know, I absolutely love my life. It's perfect just the way it is. I'm not going to screw it up with another girl. And about 4 years ago, I was up north, and I was being a smart ass speaking at the time. You know, I was saying from the podium, you know, I'm accepting resumes from my 9th ex-wife, and this little tiny girl that Harold and Carmen got to meet, and they've been to her house in Sunnyvale up above San Jose, and you know, she was 5 foot tall, and another blonde, of course. She was 98 pounds, and she came up to me and she goes, "Man, I got a resume for you." And we ended up having dinner that night, and you know what? I absolutely fell head over heels in love with that little girl, and she fell in love with me, and it was, you know, I didn't know love could be that way. And you know, it was the most amazing thing I've ever gone through in life. And a little over 4 months ago, she died. And I was really pissed at God. You know, and I know, you know, I write a lot. I probably write more at 21 years sober than I've ever written in my life. But I write all the time. Some people think that's stupid, but that's how I get to the truth, and that's how I get God back in my life, and I get connected back is through writing. And you know, I went in, I got up and I went and wrote, and the first line was, "God, you're screwed." And that wasn't the word I wrote, but and I wrote for about 10 hours that night till I could get to past the part of being pissed and get into the part where I could thank God for putting that girl in my life for a little over 3.5 years. And I don't know what God's purpose is for this. You know, my experience has been that you know what, it's the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me in my life was this little girl. My experience has been that whatever he's got in store for me next is going to be way more awesome than that. You know, so I just got more involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, and you know, my house is close to being in foreclosure, and I got a bunch of drunks living in my house, and you know, I've just gotten busier, and you know, I've done what our primary purpose is to do, is taking new guys through the steps all the time, and you know, with all this stuff going on, it isn't no big deal. My kid, my 24-year-old, told me a couple days ago, he goes, "Dad, you've had an awful year, man, and you're doing really good." He goes, "I can't believe it." You know, because I've had 4 sponsees die in the last year, a little over a year, and I was really, really close to one of them, and Harold knew him and stuff, and he used to run around with me, and he died a year ago last March of cancer, and you know, that was really hard, and he got sober at my house. You know, and he was an ex-convict. He did a lot of time in Quinton and Folsom and Soledad, and you know, when I sponsor people, I get involved in their family's life. I get involved in their kids' lives. I get involved in their wives' or husbands' lives. You know, it's an amazing event if you'll get involved in the whole family sponsoring them, and their kids calling you for advice, and one kid, someone I sponsored, you know, had me walk him down the aisle when he got married, and you know, if you're not getting involved in the whole family, you're doing yourself a disservice. You I think it's getting close to time to quit. Harold told me I could go 2.5 hours, but he'll start snoring, and Dan needed to hear the message, so I got to quit before Harold starts snoring. That way Dan could tell his 2 sponsees all the way back to Long Beach what they're supposed to be doing, or Orange County, or wherever the hell. That Southern California shit where they think they got the A by the... You ever come up to Fresno, Dan, we'll show you how to do AA. You know, getting to be here tonight's an amazing event for me. You know what, I realized in sobriety that if God's not done with you, there's nothing you can do to end your life. But you're not going to die. You might keep missing body parts, and you would think after all these body parts missing, getting shot and stabbed and all that shit, that I've lost enough, right? Well, a little over a year ago, I was cutting some wood, a blind guy with a chainsaw, and see how short that finger is? I whacked that baby off right there, and I still cut firewood. I have the rule at my house, you know, if a sponsor's either going to work a step or hold a piece of wood while I cut it. Believe it or not, one of them decided to hold a piece of wood, and I did. I cut it while he held it. You know, this has been a great deal for me down here tonight. And, you know, I know you guys came from all over, and you got to drive home, and you know, the last 4 months has been the hardest months of my life, losing Lori, and I keep showing up, and man, you know what, I'm so impressed with what you guys did tonight, and people from 10 different counties here, you know, to come here, a scumbag like me, talk to you about what God's done in my life. Thank you, and God bless you.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops. Wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.